States, with the US saying that all students who are there whose classes are going online will have to leave the country or face deportation. We're also joined, thanks so much Amitoj for speaking to us. We're also joined now by Sudanshu Kaushik, Executive Director, North American Association of Indian Students, and Tejas Shah, member of the South Asian Bar Association, and someone who's worked very closely with students. Sudanshu, first to you, so much anxiety for students right now, and now this, with this new rule coming in, everyone must be wondering what the future holds for them.
Gargi, I don't know what to say. I'm disappointed. I'm absolutely angry for all the students, a majority of which are Indian, who come here with so many hopes and dreams, and they're faced with so many legal, social, and financial hurdles. Gargi, there's a saying in this country that the United States was built by immigrants. Right. But I would go on to say that in the past half century, this country was built by immigrant students, and especially Indian students that are in every corner of the United States, and they are powerful, influential, and they have been molded by their student experience here. And for the past few months, Indian students have faced isolation, they've faced apathy, not only from the administration or the US government, but also the Indian government as well, when they've been going through so many hurdles, legally, financially, and socially as well. And I think this is just sadly a cherry on the top of all the issues that they've gone through, that they now are facing either deportation or somehow trying to weasel their way in where they can still get to say. And again, we don't know the specifics of what's been passed right now. It's going to take a few days to come out and necessarily how universities are going to respond to it. Right now, they're offering their condolences, but that's about all we have.
Hopefully they will, be more sensitive to the foreign students. Tejas, you work, on immigration issues, on immigration law. What was the need for this? There are thousands of students in the United States. As Sudanshu was telling us, they've already been going through a very tough time in managing there with, living a student life with classes suspended. But what do you see? What was the need to bring in this new rule and, threaten students with deportation?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the program. It's a great question, and I'm not sure that there really was a need to introduce this specific measure. As background for the audience that's not familiar, universities largely switched to an online-only model in March of this year, as did much of the world in response to COVID-19. And the agency which is responsible for regulating students in the United States, which is called the Student Exchange Visitor Program, had basically given a broad exemption and said, beginning in March, that students could still maintain their F1 status even while taking classes online. So this has come as a real surprise and something of a shock, that the agency has made the decision that they're not going to permit online-only learning for the next semester. Now, the one silver lining that I will point out here is that I'm hopeful that this gives universities and colleges which want to maintain some degree of international student enrollment some lead time to figure out what steps they want to take. Whether they're able to work in some sort of hybrid component to their curriculum. The guidelines which have been issued thus far, and as Sudanshu said, there's more detail that we need. But the guidelines that have been released so far don't specify a bare minimum on what a hybrid model consists of. So theoretically, if a student is taking one physical course and then the remainder are online courses, it might meet the guidelines that have been laid out here. I also do want to just quickly point out one additional practical issue separate and apart from this change. And that issue is that many U.S. consulates still remain closed right now. So, for example, students in India who may have an acceptance letter from Harvard or from some other great institution who had planned to enroll and start in the fall semester, they may not have been able to obtain an appointment to get their student visa. And for as long as the COVID-19 situation remains as bad as it is, it's still going to be a struggle to do that. So, this is not the only practical hurdle.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So still, there's a lot of clarity required, a lot more detail required in this. Sudhanshu, are you hopeful? You said right now the first reaction of universities is to offer condolences, but are you hopeful that they'll be more sensitive and, as Tejas said, come up with some sort of hybrid program which then students can hopefully use to stay on and not be faced with this deportation hanging over their heads, or flying back? I don't know, financial situations of many students may not allow them to fly back and forth.
No, I think it's best to be optimistic, and I think the ball is in the university's court. They can produce some sort of structure which might be able to fit into the three-tier structure that ICE has released in terms of how students can still maintain their statuses and not be deported. But again, Gargi, what's next? We started off with students not being able to get through the COVID-19 crisis. We then came on to the H-1B, and people were saying, oh, this doesn't affect Indian students. And look where we are. Less than a week later, there's a direct attack on, F1 students. What's next? So that I'm not optimistic about, but I'm hoping that the universities are able to really consolidate. And I think one thing, Gargi, that you need to be doing, and everyone else in India, is to make sure and pressurize that the universities do have a say, and hopefully they can lobby to make sure students aren't deported.
Tejas, a final word to you. Do you think that's something that can be done from India's side? Of course, we're very concerned about all these students.
Well, look, a lot of times it's about the dollars and cents, and Indian students are one of the largest sources of revenue for American universities. Indian and Chinese students are the two largest international student groups. And at the end of the day, I will tell you that if you see a significant drop-off in the number of international students that enroll in colleges in the coming year, they're already facing a terrible financial situation because of COVID-19. This is only going to make it worse. So, I think that there needs to be a combination of efforts and advocacy that's done both on a humanitarian basis, as well as recognizing that everyone needs to come together from an economic standpoint to try to keep these institutions afloat and also do what's the right thing for these students as well. So my last word here would be that all hope is not lost. This is obviously a difficult situation. But we've faced a lot of difficult situations in the last 3.5 years under the current administration, and just add one more to the list.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tejas and Sudhanshu, for speaking to us, and we will continue, to focus on this issue. Thanks for joining us. Well, with that, time for us to slip in.